Hey, hello again, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Dallas Cowboys Overtime here on StarTelegram.com. I am Fort Worth Star Telegram columnist Mac Engel, also a Dallas Cowboys senior advisor, joined by my good friend Mr. Clarence E. Hill Jr. It's all decked out in his favorite color. Clarence, before we get into it, tell me a little bit about your Texas Longhorns men's basketball team.
I mean, the team that just beat Kansas State. Is that what you were talking about? The Longhorns basketball team just beat Kansas State.
You think they're going to get the NCAA tournament?
They're going to be in the tournament. Stop it.
Ooh.
Stop it. Stop the
You
drama.
They're
not on the bubble. If you look at all the Joe Lenardi, everything, they're not on the bubble. Yes, let's bet on that. Let's bet on it right now. 20 big ones. Me and you.
All right. I'll bet you we can go lunch.
$20 lunch, same thing.
I was thinking a little bit less. $20 is fine. All right, $20 is fine.
It's funny because you asked me earlier if there was anything I wanted to add, and I don't know if you've seen all the Johnny football stuff that with Shannon Sharp. And I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to figure out why none of that was in the doc. I mean, they did this whole doc that was just like a
no, because they're not documentaries anymore.
That was just
the Last Dance ruined sports documentaries because these aren't documentaries, because Michael Jordan had final editorial control on what was essentially an infomercial for Jumpman Nike products, and all hail Michael Jordan. So the whole thing was edited and manicured to fit Michael Jordan's vision of himself. There was only one more moment of that entire documentary that was pure introspection and an honest look at who he was, which is a petty bully. And now he's living with regret. You go back and look at that video, and an older amount, somebody your age, my age, we can go back and look at that.
Talking about Johnny Manziel, you made this referendum on Jordan.
I'm talking about that documentary is why the Johnny Manziel and all these Netflix documentaries, the Jerry Jones documentary, although that'll be he's a lot more open about this stuff. Why? And the other thing is, why are we still talking about Johnny Manziel?
Because he was on Shannon Sharp, and Shannon Sharp gets all the stars to come sit down on his couch and bear their soul.
He's like the new Oprah.
Bear their soul. You got to check out Johnny just talking about, hey, someone offered me $3 million under the table to stay. You know, that's Sonny. What is
only $3 million?
I said Sumlin, huh?
Only $3 million.
He was making
only $3 million. That's all he could get.
$3 million under the table. You know, they were doing NIL before NIL at A&M. Okay?
Yeah. Well, I think everybody was doing NIL before NIL. You know, when I think about that sometimes, Clarence, before we get into the Cowboys topics, this century, which college football player in Texas would have cleaned up the most in NIL money? Vince Young or Johnny Manziel?
I think it's Johnny, because Johnny leaned into it. You know, and Johnny.
You don't think Vince would have?
Well, they have different personalities.
For
you
sure.
know, and Johnny was, you know, Vince was a flashy on the field, but he wasn't like that, you know, off the field like that.
No, you're right. Johnny would have been at every
Johnny leaned into it on the field,
car
off
dealership.
the field. Yes, he there's no question Johnny would have cleaned up.
Yeah, he really would have cleaned up. Okay. Speaking of who's cleaning up now in terms of good PR, our good friends, Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones, who has, after, 25 years, welcomed Jimmy Johnson back into the organization. Jimmy Johnson, recent inductee into the Cowboys Ring of Honor, is now an advisor with the Dallas Cowboys. He went on radio in South Florida, recently told former Miami Dolphins wide receiver Joe Rose. If you can remember Joe Rose, you're an old guy. I can remember Joe Rose. Do you buy this, Clarence, that Jimmy's an advisor to Jimmy now? Pardon me, Jimmy's an advisor to Jerry now. Pardon me.
I buy that Jimmy talked to Jerry, and I buy that Jimmy, if you listen to the interview, said it tongue in cheek. He was chuckling and said, I'm a Cowboys advisor. I talked to Jerry after the game. Now, Jerry calling Jimmy every day, every week, asking him how to run the Cowboys. No. I think it's a good thing that Jerry and Jimmy are back together.
So do I.
They've mended the fences, that Jimmy has Jerry's ear again to whatever event and talk and just sound off. But Jerry listens to Stephen, Jerry listens to Will McClay, Jerry listens to Mike McCarthy. Jerry has always talked to other people, and he's
Always.
always listened to other people. And Jimmy's one of those people that certainly has his ear, but when it comes down to making decisions about the team, I don't think Jimmy has that much influence. But it's a good.
No, you hit the nail on the head.
Discussing and talking, and he has his ear again.
You hit the nail on the head. The best part of all this is that at least they're friends again. They've been friends for so long, and they went through the whole divorce marital spat, and that needs to be done. And however it's done, and right. That's good. But the one thing I learned before I was covering the Cowboys with you, when I was covering the Texas Rangers and then the Dallas Stars, when it comes to sports ownership, typically they all listen to a bunch of people, and the key thing is who is the last person that they talked to before they made a big decision, right? So whether in Jerry's case, for a long time, it was Larry Lacewell. Well, God knows what Larry was going to say. God rest his soul. Larry Lacewell was a wonderful guy, but who knows what he was going to say. And I think now I'd be interested in who is the last guy Jerry's talking to before they make a big decision, because I think you and I both agree, especially at Jerry's age, Stevens making a lot of these calls. Will McClay's making a lot of these calls. Mike McCarthy's having a lot of influence on these calls, as it should be. But if you had to guess, and I know there's no way for you to know, but if you had to guess, he was usually the last guy that Jerry talks to before they decide, yep, that's what they're doing.
Well, I mean, it's no question it's Steven. I mean, Steven and Jerry locked at the hip, and they go hand in hand. And just speaking of Johnny Football, talking about, he said he wanted to go to the Cowboys, and he's actually glad the Cowboys didn't take him because, he'd have been wild in Dallas. I mean, he would not even be here if he'd have been drafted by the Cowboys, because you think he was wild and great in Cleveland. He'd have been crazy in Dallas. But just keep in mind that it was Steven, who said no to Jerry, because Jerry wanted Johnny Manziel. It was Steven who said no, and Stevens is the voice of reason. He's that person that keeps Jerry Jones in line, and he's also the person that keeps the lid on the salary cap.
Yeah, that brings us into the next topic, which is talk about ears and voices in ears and all that other stuff, which is now all of a sudden it sounds like our favorite defensive end / linebacker has taken on the role of general manager. Micah Parsons has really made the circuit, the talk show circuit, the podcast circuit, the social media circuit since the Cowboys, I guess about 2 weeks after the Cowboys lost to the Packers in the playoffs. And now he's GM, and he wants to have an influence on the roster, which, all players have their ideas. And I think you want players to care, to be invested in the outcome and ultimately the success of a team, especially really good ones. So the fact that Micah Parsons has an idea about what this team needs is positive. It's totally positive. The fear is, and let's go back to Michael Jordan, is that sometimes they don't realize the consequences of their misses. And a great player doesn't always mean that they're going to be a great general manager or talent evaluator. Michael Jordan, phenomenal player. Talent evaluator, a disaster. How much weight do you think that the Cowboys will give Michael Parsons' ideas about what they need to make that defense a little bit better? Because you already had a pretty good one. You think they're going to listen to him and say, yeah, Micah, great idea? Or do you think they're going to say, yeah, great idea, and then hang up?
Well, first of all, it's almost like Jimmy Johnson thing. I mean, come on, let's take it with a grain of salt. They're at the Super Bowl together, they're talking. It's like, how many people come up to you, come up to me on the street and ask, what do the Cowboys need to do? What do they need to do? The Cowboys need this. Cowboys. That's just right. Conversation. So Jerry, for him and Micah to be talking about what needs, that should be part of the conversation.
I agree.
Okay, there's nothing wrong with them having that conversation. Now, how much weight you put into it? Again, I told you we've already talked about that, who Jerry listens to. But what Micah said wasn't crazy, because let's remember when because the main thing he said, we need a big dump truck in the middle of the defense. We need a big guy, 330-pound guy in the middle of the defense, is what he said. That's what he told Jerry. If you remember.
Maybe like Mozzie Smith?
Exactly. When they drafted Mozzie Smith, cut to the tape, Micah's going crazy. That's the guy we need. That's the guy in the middle of the defense.
He's your teammate.
Mozzie going to go from a 330-pound dump truck to 10-man, and lose all that weight. But so there's no, what he's saying is not crazy. Yes, they need a big guy in the middle. Okay, I've said that for years. You cannot be a great defense without a horse in the middle. Okay, you need a big guy in the middle. You know,
Really?
and they, you know, to me, they were saying, Tivondre Sweat, University of Texas, come on down, please drop to us. You know,
is he a first or a second? You know, I really liked him. And you talk about, you know, when Texas got better, they got better on their lines. I mean, it took a while, but there was a big, big gap in there where Texas wasn't producing linemen on either side of the ball. The occasional defensive lineman. But when I looked at Tivondre Sweat, I'm like, that guy's pretty good. He should translate up. Question I have is he a first or second round pick? And I know nobody knows now. It's too early, all these silly stuff. But Clarence, if they did that, let's just play that out. And they did that. Is that a white flag? Is that a white flag on Mozzie Smith?
You know, they're going to milk Mozzie, and you know, maybe they can play in tandem. You know, everybody, you know, Hank is not going to be there forever. You know, but I think that Mozzie was a mistake, and it's certainly an admission that Mozzie was a mistake and not who they thought it was. They go back to back nose tackles and back to back drafts at the top of the draft. Sweat right now is a late first round, early second round pick. Is whether they can get to him. Extra is another Texas defensive lineman that's rated higher than the number one defensive tackle in the draft. So they got two guys that are going to go.
Well, they're not getting. What's the other guy's name?
My mind is. He's actually from Duncanville, and my mind is.
They ain't getting him. Okay, I know you're talking about. They're not getting him.
Yeah,
they're not.
But the bottom line is,
I thought if Sweat drops, and they think they can get him in the second round, would they move up to get him? Because you're right. If they do that, that's an indictment on Smith, and that means that they don't think he's going to get better or enough to make a difference, which is a big red flag.
Well, the bottom line
is a white flag on him.
Sweat ain't losing no weight. Okay, he's 250, 350. He ain't dropping. Okay, you know, so
no, but
guy. He's not dropping weight. But just getting back to the original topic, I mean, I think that Micah has gotten unfair criticism for being on, you know, having all these opinions. Because it's the way of the world. I mean, how many active players have podcasts? You know, I was just going through the look. Tyreek Hill, certainly the Kelsey brothers, Amon St. John Brown, whatever the receiver.
Does he have one? I don't even know anymore.
Yes, I know, because they don't get the attention that the Michaels gets, and certainly not attention local. But you know, you go back to, you know, Draymond Green. I mean, you know, that's the way of the world now. That sure. You know, he shouldn't be on a podcast. That's part of the problem. I mean, that's the lay of the land.
It is, but it is it's go back to before podcasts and all this other stuff.
They had radio shows. Everybody on the Cowboys in the 90s had their own radio show. They'll have the thing that I had a radio show.
Yeah, but the thing I go back to is when Tony Romo was at the beginning of his career, and in the offseason, he's at the White House press correspondence dinner, and he's doing all this A-list celebrity stuff that was like, yeah, it's not bad. It's not wrong. It's the offseason. It's time. Do whatever you want. But it's like, dude, you haven't done a lot in playoffs. I'm not sure you can be getting away with all this, but they can, but it's not necessarily the best look. Micah Parsons is getting all the attention because he's a Dallas Cowboy, and he's a great player. He's a Dallas Cowboy. I like it. I'm like, great. All right, go ahead, do it. But my big thing is, if you're going to talk, then you better be pretty damn good. Micah Parsons is pretty damn good. And everything he said about who they need, we all know it. It's not like he's sitting there saying, damn it, we need a new quarterback. Now, that would be a bomb. But him sitting there saying, yeah, we need a dump truck in the middle. Yeah, we know that. You guys got gashed for 100,000 yards by Aaron Jones and the Green Bay Packers, right? Again. So we already know that. Speaking of quarterback, let's go on to this one more time.
Hold on. My biggest problem with Michael is him hogging the ball in the All-Star game, okay? He took 37 shots, okay?
That's your problem. Not the fact that he was MIA.
He broke Stephen A's. He broke Stephen A's.
The problem with Micah Parsons is like, dude, you hogged the ball in the All-Star game, the basketball All-Star game. Okay, so obviously a big topic of discussion for the Cowboys this offseason is the contract of the quarterback.
We're not going to break.
We both know it's coming. That they have to restructure his contract. Jerry Jones has talked about that a lot. It's inevitable. It's going to be a big number, $58, $60 million. I think the question, I mean, they have to do it for salary cap relief to sign this guy and that guy and this guy and this guy. CeeDee Lamb's coming up. Micah's going to get paid in the future. Question I have is, Clarence, yeah, he's going to get paid. Yeah, they have to do it. Is it a problem?
I mean, it's all problems, but it is what it is. The Cowboys are ranked $18 million over the cap. Okay.
How?
What you mean how? Because of
they
still got $6 million to Zeke on the cap. They still got some other things that kick down the road. They still got things over the cap, and they have to get down under the cap. And the way you get down under the cap, the easiest way to get down under the cap is to do something with Dak. When they signed the deal, it was meant to be adjusted, meant to be extended if everything went well before the end of the deal. It was meant to be that way. He has a $59 million cap figure headed into next year. You have to lower. You have to, before you can address CeeDee Lamb and some other guys and really do some things in free agency, you have to get under the cap. And the easy way to get under the cap and clear the road for you to make other deals is to do something with Dak Prescott. That was the plan. That's what they need to do. That's what they have to do.
All right. Well, it's coming. Also, what's coming? A word from our friends at Window Nation.
Window Nation, the star of window replacement and proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys, can help you fill the house this season with savings. Buy 2 windows, get 2 free, and make no interest payments for 60 months, 5 full years. Fill your house for a customized authentic Dallas Cowboys jersey while supplies last. You could even help fill the Cowboys house and win tickets to a game. Visit windownation.com/Cowboys now for details. Call 866-95-NATION. Window Nation, proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
Thank you, Window Nation. I didn't mention you guys at the top. Window Nation's been riding with us now for 2 seasons. Really appreciate it. Clarence, we got more.
Before we move on, I want to ask you a question. You don't have AT&T cell service, do you?
No. That's funny you should say that. I'm Verizon.
I'm Verizon too.
I was thinking
AT&T about is down. Whoever has AT&T cell is not working right now.
I know, and when I saw that was going on, because some friends of mine they're AT&T customers, and I saw it wasn't just in Dallas. And obviously, it's a nationwide issue. So no, and you briefly froze up. I'm like, I hope he's not AT&T. So no, you and I we'll have problems later, but just not today.
First of all, that was you freezing up. That was not me freezing up. You're the freezer.
Oh, was I freezing up?
Yes, you were freezing.
Well, you were freezing up, so I blame you. Clarence, 2 big decisions loom large for the Dallas Cowboys this offseason. One of whom I would have thought this would have been done last year, but he proved me wrong and had a great bounce back year. I'm talking about veteran left tackle Tyron Smith, who, despite a history of some troubling injuries, knee, back, came back and had a great year. Tyron was great. He's 33 years old. Defensive end Tank Lawrence is 31, will be 32. That's typically how the math goes. Clarence, I got an email from a guy who thinks Tyron, and again, this is one of these guys who claims to know. I don't know if he knows. I doubt it. He says, I think he wants to go to Kansas City and get a 1-year deal and get a ring. That's very NBA of him. I don't know if I buy it. Tyron has family here. He's been here since he was drafted as a very young kid out of USC under Jason Garrett's, regime. And he's had a great, maybe Hall of Fame career. He's been terrific. Like I said, he had a great bounce back year in 2023. What do you think the future is for next season for DeMarcus Lawrence and Tyron Smith?
First of all, let's start with Tyron. And Tyron wants to play. He proved to himself and everybody else he can still play. And when he's on the field healthy, he can play at a high level. So he wants to play. Certainly, he would love to play in Dallas, but he's going to play somewhere. And the Cowboys have to make the money right, have to get the contract right, and have to decide if they want to continue on with Tyron or they want to go somewhere else. With injury, can you trust that he's going to stay healthy? He still missed 4 games last year, which is he's missed at least 4 games every year since 2015. And how much can you deal with that? But he wants to play. Obviously, if he goes somewhere else, I suppose Kansas City is an option, or whoever else is looking for a left tackle, because he can come in and start right away and he's potential Hall of Fame type left tackle. But the facts are he wants to play. He said he was his healthiest he's been in a long time last season, and showed that he can still play. So there's the future in Dallas is how do you make the money work again? Do you do the per game roster bonuses and whatever else to ensure that he gets his money if he's on the field, and that you save some money if he's not on the field? So those are questions that have to be decided. Again, the Cowboys have a lot of personnel decisions. Regarding DeMarcus Lawrence, I think he played pretty well, and his biggest faux pas was saying the Cowboys got tired, and he get his butt kicked by Mike.
No, but you know what? Clarence, you hit the nail on the head when you addressed that last week here on the show, which was Cowboy players, when they were being interviewed about that game, and Tank didn't talk after the game. Not many guys did after that Packers loss. They were just trying to throw out any sentence. There was nothing to say. So he threw out that. It was a terrible thing to say, but I think you're right. They were just like, okay, we're retired. It was nothing was going to sound good. That sounded bad, but nothing was good. That I think he was just throwing out words because he was on television. Yeah,
and looking at Tank. Tank's under contract, and it would cost just as much to get him off the team as to keep him. So I mean, it's a wash, because you don't have anybody. Tank is
so he's back. Tyron's the question.
Plus players on this team, on this defensive line, and Micah and Tank. I mean, you have nobody better than Tank and Micah. There's no way you move away from Tank. So I think he's back, and certainly at his current number. It's 1 year left on his deal.
So let me reiterate: Tank is back in your mind. That's done. Tyron is the question. Yes.
Yeah, Tyron is definitely the question. Again, are you ready to move on? Are you ready to move Tyler Smith out and draft a guard, or do you draft a tackle, leave Tyler Smith? I mean, those are all the decisions you have to make for now and the future. And Tyron is part of that, and Tyler is part of that. How do you want your line to look?
Well, and that's what I was just going to ask you. You led me to my next question. If Tyron doesn't come back, is the left tackle on the team already?
Yeah, that's a question, because the Cowboys drafted Tyler Smith to be the left tackle, but Tyler Smith has proven that he could be a great guard. He's going to be a great left tackle. And how do you what's best for your team?
I don't know. You said it when I threw this out one time about Zach Martin. There's certain linemen. Larry Allen's one. I'm not saying either of these guys are Larry Allen, although Zach Martin's really good. You did make this point. If he's great there, you leave him there. And I remember when I was with you covering the team, Jay Ratliff came in as an end. They moved him to nose tackle or defensive tackle, and he was great. And they kind of kicked around, moving him back to end. He was built more like an end. And I remember the consensus was he doesn't want to go back there. He's great here. He's a Pro Bowler here. Leave him here. And I look at a guy like Tyler Smith. I'm like, he's such a good athlete. He's a great guy. And I'm thinking he's a left tackle. But if he's a great guard, then maybe you just leave him a guard.
Yeah. I mean, that's the question. Yeah, but you have to have you have to have a better option at tackle.
They don't.
And if it's not going to be Tyron Smith, it's going to be who? And that's the question. Is you got to do what's best. Ultimately, you got to do what's best for the football team.
Yeah. Then if it's not Tyler Smith at the left tackle, if Tyron Smith is gone, and it's not Tyler Smith, that guy isn't on the team. All right, let's move away from football very briefly. The NBA All-Star Game was this past weekend in Indianapolis, Indiana. Whereas basically a time to celebrate the old ABA, a lot of old Indiana Pacers and Indiana legends, including Oscar Robertson. With her. Can you throw up that picture again of our favorite local basketball player, Luka Doncic? Clarence, the All-Star Game, however, itself was an unmitigated disaster. I watched about 2 minutes of it. Now, I will say this. I did watch, and I waited to watch the All-Star Game festivities the night before, specifically to see how WNBA superstar Sabrina Ionescu would do in a three-point shootout against Stephen Curry. And that was awesome. It was totally worth the wait. I watched the three-point shootout, watched Dame Lillard. It's one of the prettiest shooters I've ever seen. Win the three-point shootout against a bunch of guys who are great watching threes. I like watching that competition. But I was really wanting to see how a WNBA superstar, because she's awesome, would do against maybe the greatest shooter in the history of the game, Steph Curry. And it was competitive. Ionescu made 26 points. There's weighted points for shots and all that. Curry made 29. Ionescu's 26 would have tied like three of the guys and the other competition. I'm like, this was a hit, but it only lasted like 5 minutes. And I'm stretching that out. So the next night's the All-Star game. Got all these great players, Doncic, Joker, all these guys, and they're just screwing around and taking shots. And it's a waste of time. It's a waste of money. It stunk. Obviously, the NFL had this problem with its Pro Bowl. They did away with it. The NHL is having its same problem with its All-Star game. The only one that really doesn't is Major League Baseball's All-Star game, which has retained some sense of competition and effort, whereas the NBA's is gone. Clarence, it is what it is. Players are making a ton of money. There is such an emphasis now on not playing to avoid injury or even trying in any of these games that I don't know how you get this back.
I don't know what you do back.
After seeing any of it, I don't know if you watched it. In your mind, is it like, okay, guys, time to move on and do something else?
Well, it's almost like, to me, it's like the Pro Bowl. And the Pro Bowl has been a joke. It has been a joke. Now they're playing touch football. Yet, the ratings keep going up. And I just Googled the ratings in NBA All-Star game. As bad as that game was, the ratings went up. Somebody's watching it.
I didn't know that. Are you serious?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Ratings
Did you watch it at all? Did you watch it?
Ratings soar despite criticism, players' effort. It's crazy.
Did you watch any of it?
I did not, and I used to watch.
Don't bother. Don't bother.
I didn't watch. And I watched.
It was worse than a preseason games. Guys are trying to make rosters. Now, the top end guys aren't even playing. But you've got Giannis out there doing nothing. Doncic, as much as I like watching Luka Doncic plays, he deliberately goes out of his way not to score. There was like almost 400 points scored in that game. And the only part of it, Dan Wetzel of Yahoo Sports mentioned it, the only part of this that kind of intrigues me is how many points can you get to in a game? Like, realistically, could you get to 300? Like, since they're not trying, you might as well turn it into a total circus sideshow act and just jack threes, nothing but three-pointers to see how high the score can go, even though it left NBA Commissioner Adam Silver totally disgusted when he gave away the MVP award to, I think Dame Lillard won it for scoring 8,000 points.
And you had Bird and some other guy, Dr. J, going these locker rooms telling guys to play hard before the game. And they, and I remember as a kid, that All-Star game, Eastern West was very competitive.
It was.
It was very competitive. It was almost like the baseball, All-Star game. It was very competitive, and you love to see the guys from different, teams and different conferences go against each other. Now it's just a 3-point dunk contest. All these guys do all these dunks. It should have been the dunk contest, But crazy. It had up 20% in the unique viewers from last year, up 14% across the board from last year in views, which is crazy. And again, it boggles my mind. The same thing about the Pro Bowl. People tune in to watch the damn flag football game between these guys where they're not playing defense, not doing anything. But
what fans, crazy?
But the problem is fans love stars. Okay, as long as you have the stars, they're going to tune in to watch the stars and the train wreck of the stars. They just want to see the stars.
And when I've watched the NBA, the skills competition or the flag football game, the NFL, it's really more the flag football game than the other thing. Okay, they didn't want to play in the Pro Bowl because they didn't want to get hurt, right? Somebody's going to tear an ACL in that flag football game. I mean, it's seriously they're jumping around. I mean, I know they're not getting hit, but they're running and they're jumping, and that's a combination for an ACL. That's a combination for an Achilles, and it's going to happen. And when that happens, then everybody's just, well, what are we doing? Well, I mean, it's coming. I don't want it to happen, but law of averages, it's going to happen. Whereas in this NBA All-Star game, I didn't know that about the ratings had gone up. And, I want to address this because there is this silly narrative that has existed since the bubble. And it's usually amongst right-wing politicians who hate black players talking about civil rights issues or China or whatever else. Nobody watches the NBA. Nobody watches it. It's dying. It's dying. The hell it is. You are talking about the second most popular sport in the world because it's cheap. The reason soccer is the most popular sport in the world is because all you need is a ball. That's all you need. And in basketball, all you need is a ball and a goal, and that's it. That's why these things are so popular. The NBA is printing money, and they can run out 10 clowns out there who mail it in and don't do anything, and people will watch it. So this whole idea, this silly, stupid narrative that people are buying that the NBA is in trouble is lunacy. The question is, they're trying to do things to make it interesting for fans. Who cares? Basketball. I love basketball. And that thing out there on Sunday night was a disaster. But if people are watching it, who cares what I think?
And just to piggyback on what you said about NBA, they just released a list of the 10 most valuable sports franchises in the world. Of course, the Cowboys are number 1. But shockingly, number 2 was the Golden State Warriors. Number 3 was the New York Yankees. And number 4 was the Los Angeles Lakers.
Where are the Knicks?
Warriors, Knicks, and Lakers.
Haven't been good in 20 years?
Haven't been good in 20 years. But as far as valuable sports franchises, 20
years?
Yeah. So they're 2, 3, and 4 over all the rest of the NFL teams, not named the Cowboys, which is, crazy. But the Yankees are 5th. And so that just tells you that NBA is printing money as well.
It's doing fine. Would you get rid of the NBA All-Star? If you were in charge, they said, Clarence, you're the NBA commissioner. Would you get rid of the All-Star game or not?
No, not when ratings are up. How do you go get rid of when ratings are up? When everything you're competing with, all these different channels and everything else and streaming services and ratings are up, no, you're not going to get rid of it. It's like they're not going to get rid of the Pro Bowl. Some player recommended this, that they should try to trick it up and turn it into more of an and one competition. Or you got to be kind of familiar with that. I like basketball, so I've seen it. And you got announcers on the floor with microphones, and it's very one-on-one, and it's really hands-on. It's really fun. It's really a lot of fun to watch. It's almost like watching pickup games or these sort of semi-organized games at Rucker Park or these other places that are really basketball-centric. That's kind of fun. But the other idea that I saw, and I love this, I think an NBA player threw this out. He said, if you really want to get the guys to try, this is what's on the line. Whoever loses has to show the world their DMs. Yeah, okay.
I was like, then everybody will be trying. All right, we've talked a lot.
Hold on, we got one more thing. We got a question from the audience. Heard on your TV affiliate opinion of Parsons, some teammates had burnout by playoffs, and when they should be feeling
heightened enthusiasm. What's y'all's take on that? And Clarence, what happened to your hat? It looks cool. Dexter, really want to appreciate the feedback. I think you're right. I think anything Clarence can do to cover up his face and head is a bonus. We didn't address, we addressed it tired. We didn't address burnout.
Isn't that the same family? I think that people are using what DeMarcus said about DeMarcus about being tired and making that burnout. And it's all in the same family. I don't think there was anything. The only person that even broached tired or burnout was DeMarcus. No one else even brought it up or used it as an excuse. And people are, changing the word and changing the meaning. I don't know if they were burnout, but it's the playoffs. We're talking about the playoffs. And this is the time you get rejuvenated.
This is why you lift all them weights. These are the games you want to play for. Yeah, man, I'm burned out. I'm tired.
You got the Super Bowl. This is the goal is here. You're finally in the damn tournament, as Bill Parcells said. The tournament time is new season.
I went back and I watched like the first quarter of that game. Yeah, I was sitting next to you. Obviously, we're watching the game. And Clarence, of all the games that I've seen sitting next to you, there's only one other one where I could think, I cannot believe. No, the other one I remember I saw coming, not to that level. The only other one that I can remember that was like that was the infamous 2008 season-ending game at Philadelphia, where if they win and they're in, and they go out and they lose to the Eagles 44-6. I can't remember a Cowboys game where they went out and they were done. The difference is that Cowboys team was falling apart in the last month, and that's why neither you nor I were like, well, we kind of saw this coming. There was no sign of this coming, and I think that's still the part that shocks us all, is the fact we didn't see it come. Okay, a loss, yeah, right. But to get your butt kicked from jump, that's the part that's still mind-boggling.
Yeah, it was non-compete from jump, and that's the most painful, disheartening thing for the Cowboys, that they were shocked and they didn't see it coming. And I think that's the problem, that when everybody keeps trying to come up with reasons, they can't, because it's unexplainable. It's inexplicable that they would come out and play like that, and they can't. To this day, they cannot put a finger on what was the root cause.
No, I mean, their defense.
Well, you can say the defense. Why was the defense so bad? Why were they so bad?
I don't know. Hey, Clarence, you know what they need? They need like a big defensive tackle in the middle. That's what they need. Hopefully, maybe they'll address it in the draft. Oh, that's right. Clarence, real quick. On this episode of Cowboys Overtime, are you more burned out or are you more tired?
I'm burned out with you.
I'm burned out. I'm tired of you. Kenny, thanks a lot. You're amazing. For all your Cowboys and sports coverage needs, check us out at StarTelegram.com. We love you, Winter Nation. We'll see you next week.
The hat comes back next week.